If they asked me, I could write a book about the way you walk and whisper and look.
And a great pleasure now to welcome to our book talk segment. You've read his books, I'm sure, going back to the first one out, which was called Coma. He's got a brand new one out now. It is called Host, and we're joined today by New York Times bestselling author Robin Cook. And Robin joined us on the telephone today from up in the Boston area. Robin, good to talk with you. How are you?
It's nice to be on your show.
Yeah, good to have a chance to chat with you. And I know you're up in the Boston area today. I hope it's not getting too cold yet.
No, today it's almost 70 degrees.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good, because it can go south in a hurry, the weather. I grew up in New York. I know it well. But well, first of all, congratulations not only on this book, but the great success of the previous books. And this is number 32, right? In your
34.
34. That's even better.
Each year it grows another year.
and for those again who you may not be aware, of course, the first one that came out was Coma, which was such a huge bestseller, and it's all written. All the books are dealing with medical because you're a doctor yourself. So this one, I guess, a little scary. Just kind of reading through the book a little bit, what happens in the hospitals. Talk a little bit about the plot. I don't want to give too much away, but it's a scary thing, isn't it?
It is very scary, and in fact, that's really the reason that I wrote it. I want people to be scared. First of all, it's written as an entertainment, and we all like to be scared a little bit from the safety of our armchair. It does get our attention, but at the same time, it is. You mentioned my book Coma, which wasn't my first book; it was my second book.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes, my first book was not very well liked. It wasn't. Nobody read it. Nobody bought it. And I realized I reread it myself, and I realized that it was a little boring. And so I said, if I want to tell people about medicine, I've got to learn how to write a book that's fun to read. That you started and you have trouble putting it down. And so I went ahead and read a whole bunch of books. Then I'd never read a bestseller, and I read books like Jaws and stuff. And so a little bit, Host is a little bit like Jaws in the hospital. A little analogy. But the difference, of course, is that you can read Jaws and be terrified of great white sharks and say to yourself, okay, that's it. I'm not going back in the water. Stay out of the ocean. And you can live a great life without going in the ocean. You read Host, you'll be just as scared, and yet you can't say, I'm never going to be a patient. I'm never going to a hospital. So in a sense, it's even scarier because we're all at risk. And we're all at risk in the sense that going into a hospital, you give up being in control, and you're not in control. And the fact of the matter is that nasty things happen in hospitals. And so that's one of the messages. Stay out of the hospital.
I was going to say, I fortunately didn't have to go until about 13, 14 years ago. I had to go in for an operation. You're right about that. You're totally at the behest of the staff around you. You hope you have good nurses and doctors, but you have no control at all of what happens to you in there. So you really trust it. You have to trust, don't you?
You do. And you should have an ombudsman. You have somebody who go in that's kind of watching over everything and making sure that, is that really medication? Is that really for this individual, this patient, or is it for the person down the hall? You know, just strangest things happen in hospitals, and because it's manned by people, and people make mistakes and whatever. And the tragedy is that currently about 100,000 people a year in this country die from an illness that they contracted in the hospital. It was different from what brought them into the hospital, and that should say something. And the fact of Host is dealing with these kind of issues. It's not that I'm making this up. This is it is a problem.
I never heard of it before, but MRSA, right? Isn't that the name of one of the viruses or whatever it's called you can get in a hospital now that they can't kill, right?
Yes, that's because we've misused antibiotics.
Yeah.
This country has misused antibiotics, and so many of the bad bugs now are bugs that are used to the antibiotics, so they don't care. You give them the antibiotics, the bugs say, fine, give me more. And so you get these circumstances where the infection is out of control, and essentially you're back to the mid-1800s, or even, the turn of the century, the 18 into the 1900s, before antibiotics, where you're really, your body has to try to deal with the infection. There's really not much you can do.
Yeah, my mom was a nurse going back to the 40s and 50s and worked in public health, and she said that was very rare back then that people would get infections in the hospital because they were so good at sterilizing and all that, and I guess the antibiotics were just kind of coming out then, and maybe even before they came out. It was a lot safer then in some ways than it is today.
And the antibiotics worked a lot better because bacteria hadn't been exposed to them. We've overused antibiotics, particularly antibiotics being used in farming and for cattle and stuff like that, and chickens, and so we've developed all these bugs that are just they don't mind the antibiotics. In fact, they flourish in the face of the antibiotics. So anyway, Host is about the kind of circumstances that there are patients that are being taken advantage of and being given illnesses that they didn't have before they came into the hospital.
Yes.
And we have such a screwy healthcare system in this country. I wouldn't have been able to write 34 novels about our healthcare if we had a rational system. It's just that the system is it's getting worse instead of better.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because you live it as a physician yourself, and the whole change in healthcare in the last year or two. It's probably going to even get more expensive next year, from what I understand. How bad can it get, and can it be turned around quickly?
It can't be turned around quickly because there's no political will to do anything, because all the politicians are in the pockets of the stakeholders. Like in Host, you have a hospital chain and a large pharmaceutical company that are teaming up to take advantage of patients. And in real life, hospital corporations and pharmaceutical companies are literally robbing us blind. And they control all the politicians because the pharmaceutical industry alone spends close to $1 million a day lobbying our politicians on both sides of the aisle. If people wonder why there's such stupid laws, why is there a law that Medicare cannot negotiate pharmaceutical prices? There's a law that says Medicare cannot do that. The politicians in Washington passed that law, if you can believe it. It doesn't make any sense, no sense. And the reason is because they're in the pockets of the pharmaceutical industry. And what kind of profits will justify an industry spending $1 million a day lobbying?
You can't watch a TV show, or definitely not a game on TV, without every commercial being for some kind of drug. I've never seen that.
That's right.
Last
Prescription drug.
Yeah.
No other countries will you see that. Only here. And again, it's because they control the politicians. And besides that, even if that doesn't make you angry enough, I found out just recently that they deduct all their expenses for running those ads from their taxes.
Wow.
As a business expense. So we're being hurt doubly. First, we have to watch the damn ads. You can't watch the news without ads for this, that, or the other thing. And then the country is losing money. They're not paying the taxes that they should be paying. And so...
Apparently, Cialis and Viagra are very much in need drugs.
Yeah, right.
And then all the side effects on these other drug commercials, you never want to take it because they all can cause death and even worse things than the symptoms.
Yeah, but boy, they do it. I think they hire these guys that are normally auctioneers in Texas for cows or something because they list all those problems so quickly that it's like a blur, an audible blur. But it's true. Every every drug has side effects. Every drug, even the ones that are over the counter.
Sure.
And you have to decide, you know, should I take this? Should I not? And people should really make these decisions. But the trouble is, it's hard to make these decisions without information. And that's what I'm hoping, that fun novels like Host, it's a mystery thriller, it keeps your attention and scares you a little bit and all that kind of stuff. It can change people's attitudes. I hope that the public, their attitude will change, that it's the public that can demand change in healthcare and should. And it's doctors, because the doctors and the patients are the ones that are peripheralized by our current health care system, which doesn't make any sense, because the doctor and the patient should be the center of it all. But no, we're out on the periphery.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
really,
the patient is in a bad condition, but the doctor is kind of in the middle too, between the insurance companies and what they're supposed to do legally, right? I mean, it's tough.
Doctors are really peripheralized these days, and that's why a lot of doctors in my generation, who are at their peak of their knowledge and experience, and they're getting out. They're retiring. No doctors retired when I was a teenager and thinking about going into medicine. In fact, that was one of the reasons that I went into medicine. I thought, gosh, look at these doctors. They are loving their work so much that they just keep doing it until they drop in their tracks. And because it really, not anymore.
No.
Doctors, our best doctors, the ones with the most experience, they're retiring or doing something else. And it's a tragedy. It's a unfolding tragedy, and unfortunately, we're all patients and we all suffer.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm sort of hoping that Host will be that kind of a novel to get people to realize that our healthcare system is out of control.
We have limited time, Doctor. I wish we could talk more about it. Maybe we can do it down the road. But again, we want people to check out the book. It's called Host. Robin Cook has been our guest, and I know you can get it anywhere. It just came out, getting great reviews. Do you have a particular website you want to direct people to? They can get a contact with you. Well,
I have a fan page, Robin Cook fan page on Facebook, and also a website.
RobinCook.com. I see it right here in the notes.
Yeah.
Robin, real pleasure to talk to you. Great commentary. I think you got it right on with the medical system. Hopefully we'll get it fixed the next year or two. But in the meantime, they can enjoy the book. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, Doug. Bye.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about, please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or Doug Miles.